Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Colonel Jim Brady. I'm your Garrison Commander for Fort Bliss. We're conducting a quarterly town hall event, and this is something we do in order to provide an exchange of information from the Garrison, the Directorate of Public Works, Housing, and the Residential Community Initiative Branch, and Balfour Beatty Communities. And then we want to, at the end of this, receive feedback from our residents. We're going to be using a slide presentation to kind of guide the brief. And if you don't have this, after the briefing, we'll be posting it on the public portal. If you were to go into Google and Google search U.S. Army Fort Bliss and drive into DPW under the Garrison and the housing area, you'll be able to see these videos displayed, and you can see the live recording of this event and the slides that go with it. And so the purpose, I've already expanded on the purpose, and that should be the next slide, please. And as I said, we're going to have question and answer at the end of this, so please hold your questions till the end. The next slide will go over just some guidelines for the way we'll conduct the brief. And this is going to happen today in two sessions. One right now at 1100 hours, the next one is at 1700 hours. So we're doing that to ensure we get maximum participation from our residents. And so the first principle is there's no reprisals for what you bring up. We do ask that you only couch your comments regarding your particular issues, that you are not bringing up issues for someone else. That's second or third party information. Please provide where you live and how long you've lived there for context. Be brief and respectful, because we want to allow as many participants as possible to answer questions. Again, only raise your own issues, don't raise issues for other people. We're only going to conduct this briefing for 1 hour. It is recorded right now, so that it can be posted and viewed. Next slide shows the installation participants. So you have myself. I've already introduced myself. On my left, Command Sergeant Major Gonzalez, Garrison Command Sergeant Major. Our Deputy, Aurora Castaneda, is not with us. Mr. Todd Badone, over on my right, is the Director of Emergency Services, Deputy Chief of Police. Mr. Phil Roble, Balfour Beatty Project Director, on my left. Ms. Letty Stevens, Fort Bliss Family Homes Community Manager, directly to my left. Ms. Yolanda Brown, the Chief of DPW Housing Division. And then we have installation subject matter experts throughout the room. And so if a question comes up, we may redirect to those individuals. All right, the next slide shows the agenda for this. So up front, we're going to cover information that's standard for those who are residents of Balfour Beatty. You should have received or have in your possession a plain language brief. We give that to every resident so they understand what their rights are. So we're just going to quickly cover that. The tenant informal dispute resolution process. There's both an informal and a formal dispute resolution process, just to allow a fair and quick and equitable resolution to your issues. We're going to show government contact information, so after this meeting, if you have any issues you want to bring up, you can follow up with those contacts. There'll be a DES, Director of Emergency Services, deep dive, how they relate to housing. Then we'll go into a Fort Bliss Family Homes update, and then we'll have the remainder for questions and answers. So the next slide is the plain language brief. And so the Tenant Bill of Rights, codified by Installation Management Command, and recognized by the RCI partners, Residential Community Initiative partners. They understand these are the Tenant Bill of Rights. You have rights to good housing, quick maintenance, communication, things like that. And so this is what you would expect of your landlord if you went into a lease. And then there's requirements of the tenant, right? So the tenant also has requirements to keep the home in good condition, to quickly raise up maintenance condition issues so that the home does not become dilapidated. Because again, you're a temporary resident and a future resident will have to live there. We have to keep it up. Tenants have a requirement for their neighbors to keep a quiet dwelling that does not impact on neighbors. If you have pets, there are pet policies. And so this is a two-way street. Landlord and tenant both have requirements according to the lease. And again, IMCOM and the RCI partners recognize this. And so if you have questions about that pertaining to the plain language brief, we can save that for questions and answers. Next slide is your tenant informal dispute resolution. So as you have an issue and you're unable to work with Balfour Beatty to resolve it, then you can raise the issue to the garrison level. And that's what, it's informal because the garrison commander will arbitrate the issue as kind of a fair judge. You have Balfour Beatty, and then DPW housing is supporting the garrison commander, and then you have the tenant or the resident. And we try to work to come to an arrangement that both parties, the landlord, Balfour Beatty, and the tenant, the resident, are able to resolve their issues at a lower level. If they're unable to resolve that, then there can be a request for a formal resolution, and that will go up to Installation Management Command, where they will arbitrate the matter on the resident's behalf. And again, for each process, there are different rights and outcomes involved. There's, again, more information in our plain language brief. Next slide is government points of contact. So with this is just a list of who you can go to. What we find with our residents is sometimes they don't know where to take their complaints to or issues to. And so we want them to work directly with Balfour Beatty and the community managers to quickly resolve it. Sometimes they don't even have access there. So, you know, if you were to go on Google and Google search Fort Bliss Family Homes, that will get you quickly to the Balfour Beatty Family Home site. And you can look in their contact information. You're able to see what is the current real-time listing of community managers, assistant community managers, maintenance managers for not only local communities, but for the entire Fort Bliss Family Homes. And you can use those. Gives them not only email accounts, but their cell phone access or office numbers. And so you can reach out and call those individuals. Sometimes we find that process is skipped, and residents will use what they're comfortable with, those who they've interacted with. But there's always recourse to take issues through Balfour Beatty. If you don't have any resolution that way, then there's the Directorate of Public Works Housing Division, and in there, like I said before, the Residential Community Initiatives branch that deals directly with Balfour Beatty. And again, several contact numbers there. And then we elevate, if you can't get resolution that way, you can always bring it up to the Garrison Command level, or we can find out where there was an issue with coordination and resolve it. And then last, there's a hotline, which is item number 6. If you find that there's an issue that you can't get any resolution or someone to contact with, the hotline is available for DPW to answer and resolve your issues. The next slide just shows a Facebook post of our Facebook portal, and that's a mechanism that we can use to get out public information. But the one I was speaking about before is the one on the usarmy.mil website that allows you to see direct information from DPW and the RCI branch, to include recordings of past housing town halls and these informational slide decks. So again, great resource. Next slide, please. So next I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Bonone to go over a DES update.
All right, good morning, everyone. So this is our 90-day property crime by our neighborhoods. So if you look at June, we're pretty heavy. Property crimes are larcenies or damages. We're pretty heavy in June because that's PCS season. So we usually see a rise in the damages and the larcenies, people reporting TA50 that they're missing, basically to clear. We created a ComStat action plan based off of this crime, sent the patrols out extra into the housing areas. We did motor pool checks and such, and you can see that it went down from June, July, and August. We'll be wrapping up our action plan, putting together the entire last 6 months of our larcenies. We're generally pretty good in our housing areas with larcenies. Last year we created a rather large action plan that we went out into the housing areas. So now what we do is we track all the hours that the MPs are in specific housing areas. We've been out doing courtesy cards if your garage door is open, as reminders to people to close their garage doors, cars parked out on the street that aren't locked. So I believe that we've done a really good job bringing that down, good neighborhood support on that. The 90-day speeding ticket. So part of our action plan in the housing areas was to listening to ICE comments, people calling in, school zones. So we set our traffic section out, which is a special traffic enforcement plan, STEP. And I basically told them, hey, we need to get into the housing areas for twofold, right? One for the larcenies, and the second thing is to slow people down. So you will see that we are out now in front of the school zones, getting people jaywalking. We are out doing parking issues and stuff like that. So we track these speeding tickets along with the housing area times that we're there every 2 weeks. It's called running staff estimate. It goes up to the Garrison Commander, and then we brief that monthly to him. And then we also report quarterly to IMCOM on our action plans. So that's why you'll see the higher tickets in the housing areas, because we're really focusing on slowing people down in the housing areas and doing the right thing. So these are our contact numbers. I will ask that if you have a problem in your housing area, that you call our dispatch center and report it to us, because we can only give stats that are reported to us. We see a lot of the community Facebook pages where people are talking about larcenies, and we go back in to check our stats and we're not seeing it. So we ask that you report it, and these are all of our contact numbers for that.
Before we go, so thank you, Mr. Bernone. So before we go into the Fort Bliss Family Homes update, just want to describe what we did last year. So as we were working through walking town halls, we had a major town hall in September of 2021, and then in November we went to walking town halls. And we went each month to a different community. And from that, we're able to interface directly with residents and physically see the issues they were describing with speeding and or lights or security issues. We continued that all the way up through May, and that accounted for our quarterly town halls of actually going out and meeting the community. And then in May, we did another one. Throughout the summer, the Balfour Beatty and DPW staff focused on the summer surge, and now we're continuing with another quarterly town hall. This year, the guidance I've given is we're going to have 3 quarterly town halls, one in September, one in January, and one in May. And the rest of the time, so October, November, and December, we'll be doing walking town halls. February, March, April, walking town halls. And then again, as we get to the summer season, we're going to get out and focus on the summer surge. And so those are other mechanisms where we see the actual issues with security. So I'll now hand it over to Ed Roble, who's going to cover first the plan development. Go ahead.
Thank you. So on the agenda, you can see in front of you, we'll be discussing the plan development, out-year plan, COVID-19 updates, the work order process, home-based businesses, community reminders, issue resolution process, and the BBC scholarship winners from last year. So next slide, please. So on the next slide, we're discussing the plan development. So this is work that's been addressed or looking at concerns that you as residents have brought forward with the survey results, issues that we needed to take care of with the homes and everything. So this has been through the process with the Army. We've submitted it. We received our preliminary approval. We're getting final bids. We'll have those in, and we'll get final approval hopefully in the next 60 days. So some of the work that will be done is HVAC replacement, dealing with ductwork in the Logan Heights area, landscaping refurbishment, plumbing, dead tree removal, exterior painting, playgrounds and ball courts, and then encapsulation of lead-based paint on some of the homes. So this work will begin hopefully the end of this year, fall of '22, and it's slated to be a 5-year program to do all this work. We'll roughly touch about 30,000 or so homes in the process in various ways, doing all this different work. So that's kind of where we're at with the plan development. Now, if we go to the next slide, this has become additional work, and I'll explain what's going on here. So yes, we do have landscaping we're going to be addressing in the out-year plan, but due to a storm last year, last August, and we had to go through our insurance and everything, get approval, and so we had about 1,100 homes that get impacted outside the gate, outside the perimeter, and with that we're redoing all the front yards, common areas, and we've we've already committed and completed so far Lower Beaumont and Hayes, and we're right now in Lindquist Heights. So we're roughly about 300 of the 1,100 homes have been completed. With that, we still have to go to the north end of Paso del Norte, and then we'll do Logan Heights, George Moore, and the 108s. The reason that's to be determined, it's as we get done in one neighborhood, we go into the next neighborhood. It's a lot of work, and we keep moving forward as weather permits, and we can get snow, because that's a lot of snow we're putting back down in all the neighborhoods and the yards and common areas. The next issue is new roofs in the 108s homes. This work has been expedited because of some concerns and issues we've had with the roofs not being up to par, and we're having leaks and so forth. So we've actually submitted approval. We're waiting from the Army to sign off on that. Hopefully we'll have that in the next 30 to 60 days, and we'll be starting those roofs very shortly. And then the last thing is the playgrounds and ball courts. So with this, we have heard your concerns on the conditions and upgrades that need to occur on all the playgrounds. So therefore, actually I've pulled out of the out-year development plan all the ball courts and playground work and submitting that as a separate MDM. And we'll be doing that internally with the project company with my oversight, and we'll hopefully be starting that here probably around January. Now there is additional work that's being done in the playgrounds. We're just waiting for the materials to come in. It's been a lengthy, drawn-out process because of COVID issues. With that, they'll be starting here the next week or so on doing some maintenance on the playground structures, and then once all the sunshades come in, we'll be replacing those, and then we'll be replacing a few playgrounds as well. So it's a combined process. So we'll have the first go this year, and then we'll start the second phase next year. In that second phase, like I said, that's going to be more detailed. We'll replace a few more playgrounds. We'll be removing. We'll have a correspondence and sending out explaining what we're going to be doing. Ballparks will be removed. We've been asked by a lot of residents to put dog parks in. So we're looking at least doing at least one, if not two, new dog parks. Also, the ball courts, they're in very bad condition. So like I said, they'll be removed and replaced and upgraded accordingly. With that, that's all I have, and I'll pass it off to Lenny.
Sorry, you guys are going to hear my voice for a little bit right now. I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. Today was my Monday, but just some COVID-19 updates. As you all know, everybody is allowed back into the offices. This has been our protocol for quite a while now. We just ask that, of course, if anybody's feeling ill, to please be wearing their mask when you come into the office, or just not come into the office. Definitely just give us a call, and we'll be happy to answer any questions, through email, through phone. Our team are going to be continuing, especially when it comes to any of our work orders that are going in. They should still be wearing a mask, be cleaning up after themselves, cleaning out any of those areas. If anything like that does not occur, you do need to let us know immediately. We do also have our facilities director in the back as well to answer any of those questions. Next slide. Live work order agents and updated work order process. So live work order agents are available 24/7, and that's going to be through our call center. We know that it's been a little bit of a hit or a miss. One of the things that I tell everybody is get to know the people in the back. Everybody who's sitting in the background right now, they're here to assist you, answer any questions, myself included. Our telephone numbers are out there. We want you to utilize those emails, those numbers and everything, especially if you're not getting any type of reception back from our callback, our call center, or you just need a little bit more information. Residents can call the maintenance number, so it's going to be the normal number that you've been calling, the 915-564-0795. Please call. That'll connect you to a call center. If at any time there is a disruption in service, we do put that information via Red Cafe. We also do that through our Facebook. Just make sure that you're looking through all these different avenues. If anything changes, meaning your telephone number, your email address, please let us know. That way we can go ahead and we can change that as well. Another thing that's quite important is that if you're the service member and you know that you're not going to be accessing your emails, 24/7, please make sure that you put the people that you want, who are putting in those work orders, who need that information for it to go through. That way we're making first contact with them. That's very important. Also, one of the things that we'll want with TSS is just to have that good contact information on there. Just remember, our agents, they're not here locally here in El Paso. So when you're calling the call center, you are going to be getting individuals from other parts of the country. Just make sure that if you do need to speak to a supervisor, you leave that information on there and someone will reach out to you. We know it's not a perfect system. We know that there's going to be complications that happen, but that's why it's important, once again, for you to know the people who are in this office, especially, the individuals in the back of you once again. And they'll be here also afterwards if you'd like to get to know any of them. If residents do place an emergency work order outside of business hours, a maintenance technician will still be dispatched and they will respond immediately. If not, there will be a follow-up call from them as well. And then, like I said, you want to stay in touch with us. Next slide, please. Agents will schedule a work order appointments immediately. One of the things that I tell many families is that once you're placing that work order, you're going to be given an email. Please check your spam. A lot of things do go into spam, and a lot of times that's where those dates or those time schedules are missed. So it's just very important, once again, that you're looking at all of those emails. And if you're not receiving them, please come to the office or just give us a call. We know that you all have busy schedules, and we can definitely check that or make sure that we don't have anything incorrect, or that, it's going to the correct email, the person who's putting in those work orders, and that there is very important. If a resident submits a request through the from the resident portal, they will receive an email, as I stated. And so that one right there is to say, to prevent this, at the email address, noreply@rentcafe.com. So all that information there is just very, very important for you to follow through and just make sure that you are receiving all that information. Excuse me. If we can go to the next slide, please. Additionally, we've also rolled out our text messaging system. So many of you have seen them. A lot of times what ends up happening is that you get a text message from us stating, has your work order been completed? Sometimes you're going to be like, oh, you know what, I have a few things that I need to do. Let me wait a little bit longer. I'll go ahead and I'll reply a little bit later. And sometimes we forget. So it's imperative that if you do have a moment, just take your time. Please answer those key texting, because that's what lets us know a couple of things. It lets us know, was the work order completed? Were you satisfied with the work? Because if you push no, you're not satisfied, it'll keep that work order open, or somebody's going to call to let you know, hey, let's reschedule this appointment. Let's get this taken care of. But when it goes unsaid, that's usually when a lot of people end up start receiving, because all of that will go to our GHO if we don't receive a response. So many times, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, you're getting something from us saying, hey, this work order was closed out, and you either don't remember what that work order was for, I never opened that work order. So a lot of that information can hopefully help us in the future if, once you receive that key texting, is that we're just closing out those work orders and you're giving us your honest feedback. Text messages will come from the 844 number that is also listed above, so that way everybody's tracking that is an important number if you see that. This is also not part of our satisfacts. Once you do close everything out on there and let us know if the work is completed, you will be generated a survey. With those surveys, those are so important for you to fill out. Like I tell everybody, we want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good surveys that you put out there, we use them as teachable moments. We give our team accolades. So, please put that information on there. If it's something you're not satisfied with, please let us know there as well. We have a dedicated team that looks at all those satisfacts. We do reach out. We do understand at times we don't appease everybody, and we know that. But we do want to make a conscious effort to try to help all families. So it's important that you just put all that information on there and you just give us any type of feedback. And we also have a lot of contests and different things with our teams out there. So once again, we just ask for that support. Once again, respond Y if you're satisfied, report N if you're not satisfied, and one of our team members will reach out to you. Next slide. Okay. With this right over here, comparing resident satisfaction surveys, you're going to see everything from 2021 to 2022. As you can see, there is going to be a bit of a change. You're going to see a little bit of a decrease on some scores. Part of the reasons is what I had been mentioning, is that some of these key texting that's coming to our families, it's coming a little later in the day or a little later from when the work was actually completed. Some people just are not aware of what work order was that, so they're either not answering or they're answering as no, it was not complete or not satisfied. It's very important, once again, just please answer them. Don't wait, because that's usually when people will forget, and then once again, it kind of doesn't give us, it gives us kind of skew information. We want to be able to improve those scores, but we can't improve on those scores if you don't give us your honest feedback or just let us know what we can do. And in retrospect, like I said, it's important for us to know also what we're doing well in so we can let our teams know as well. Going on to our next slide. As for work orders, we also do have ones that we do for move-ins, and then there's another one for move-outs, which is not going to be shown on here. We don't get too many scores back for that. There has definitely been a bit more of an increase. I know that there's still a little bit more left for this year for us to improve on those satisfaction scores. But once again, we want to know what our team is doing well and what they're not doing well in. How can we improve on our services? It's important for us to know that because that's how we plan for the future. We can't know what we can fix if we don't know what we're doing incorrectly. These are also things that I urge families. We've started our meet and greets, especially, and we even send them out to families who are future residents. Come and meet the individuals here in this building. Let us know what we can do to improve upon our services. It's just, once again, I can't emphasize how important it is to have these surveys turned back into us for us to know what we can do to either increase services and improve upon them. The next slide, please. Home-based businesses. This has actually been something that's been very popular this year. I think it started from the pandemic. A lot of families, finding ways to make a little additional income. Things to remember. Once you're picking up a home-based business, it does have to be picked up at 2494 Ricker Road. It all starts through here. You fill out that application, you turn that in, and from there it's going to go to each office for approval. There's a lot of different things that people have placed in there, from anything from food businesses to clothing, anything that you can think of. You just want to make sure that if it's something that you're going to be starting or somebody that you have a friend who's going to be starting a home-based business, that they're doing everything the correct way. This is not something for any type of childcare. Childcare will be a completely different entity through FCC, so that right there, just letting most families know on that. Anything with any type of food would require a food handler's license, but there's a lot more things that go into it. So it's just making sure, because I can tell you, a lot of times when we find out information of somebody running a home-based business in the home, this is the first thing we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the file, making sure that it is being ran accordingly and that you have all the signatures. If not, that will definitely lead to a phone call and possibly an inspection to make sure that everything is terminated until this process is being run accordingly. Next slide, please. Community reminders. All of our community centers, just because we tend to get a lot of calls, a lot of people who want to hold a lot of festivities, especially with the holidays coming up, just remember, you're more than welcome to lease out any of our community centers. Our Kelly Park office is going to be our largest one that most people like to utilize. You have the pavilions, you have everything in the inside as well, with a kitchen. Remember, it is a $250 deposit. It's 100% refundable as long as it's returned back to us the way that it was given. No alcohol can be served in any of those community centers, but it's a great way not to get your house dirty, so I definitely implore you to look at that. One of the #1 issues that we usually hear as well are pets. There's so many different things that we can kind of go, and I can talk forever when it comes to animals here on the installation, but the most important thing is that if you have a pet, please register your pet. You just have to call the vet clinic. Please do not take your pet there unless you have, an ongoing appointment there with your vet. We did provide you with the number there, so, a good number to have on your phone just in case. And then, of course, for any issues, you would want to go ahead and report that to the community as well or to your office. Please report any of your issues directly to any of our individuals here in the back, especially with our assistant community experience managers and our other CMs, which are other community experience managers. We are looking to fill a couple of positions when it comes to those fields, which I'm sad to say, but there's going to be an opportunity for growth for anybody who's interested in joining. And not only that, it'll also give us an opportunity to continue our meet and greets and allow you to meet a lot of these friendly, happy faces that are happy to help you. And most importantly, if there's any information you want, follow us through Facebook and Instagram. There's always a lot of information, especially with our special events manager who puts out a lot of great programs for our family. So please take advantage of those. And if you have any questions, we do monitor our Facebook 7 days a week. Please ask us. You can either direct message us or just ask on any of the feeds for any of our programs that we have. I told you you're going to be hearing my voice for a little bit. I'm sorry. Backyard do's and don'ts. Things that I've seen when I just drive property, and this has been for my 10 years being here. Don't overwater your yard. I know that everybody wants a green yard. I know that it's great to kind of, help out with those pesky goat heads. But just remember, anytime that you are increasing the amount of water that it's in your front or backyard, you're also giving a great breeding ground for mosquitoes and other pests. So you just want to model the water schedule, which I have provided up there for you, which is going to be even numbered areas will water on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Odd numbers will be on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. And you want to kind of keep it to no more than 45 minutes. Honestly, sometimes I'd probably put it less than that. We're in the desert, so, unfortunately, just a little bit of water just helps generate everything. I also ask that if you can also limit it to 2 times per week, just for water conservation. You do not get your water here locally from El Paso. It would be from the aquifers, but still, we want to make sure that we have enough water for our future. So I just ask, please be conservative when it comes to that. A lot of things that I see too, and I see it out in the city, is that when you're overwatering, there's a lot of water that tends to go out into the street. Please just make sure that if you are doing things in your front, especially like say for our families in North Main Post, you want to make sure that you angle it to an area where it's not going out and giving birds a free bath. You just want to make sure that you're just keeping it in that one area and not hitting the building. We've had a lot where it's seeped into windows or it hits the roof, so you just want to be conscientious of where you're putting that. If at any time you don't want to maintain your backyard, we do have services through our GMI landscape. There are going to be certain price quotes, so what we usually have you do is fill out a piece of paper. You can have a picture that you'll attach to that as well, and then you'll prepay for the service. But if that's something you'd like done, please let us know, and we'll be happy to assist when it comes to that. And any of our community centers will be able to provide you that information as well. If you'd like to go with your own company or hire a teenager, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But the most important thing, and we know that we're working it through all of our local neighborhoods right now. We know that there has been an increase of weeds. We do have our GMI who's going out, and actually our facilities director has been driving with him to locate all those areas of concern, so we'll be addressing those as well. But we just want to make sure within your own fenced-in area that you are maintaining. I know for a couple of you that I've been to your homes before, I know that you all have some very beautiful yards. And I know that sometimes we just need a little bit of maintenance or a little bit of assistance. So the only thing that we ask is just, keep it trim. There's a lot of things that can happen by things getting a little bit out of control when it comes to our backyard and those weeds. Next slide, please. Just to kind of give you a picture here from our do's and don'ts, we do have a Yard of the Month club. Basically, with our Yard of the Month, it is chosen by our peers, or your peers. Those pictures are then placed on Facebook, and we do have a sponsor through Omni that does give out prizes. They're going to be in different areas. The one listed above here is in Lower Beaumont. Somebody who definitely, takes a lot of pride in their backyard and just loves doing a lot of things with their yard. And I know it brings me a lot of peace when I'm out there, so, definitely ask you to do that. Another one there is going to be once again from, a not to do, which is going to be an overgrown backyard with weeds. We just want to make sure, once again, that's a great breeding ground not only for insects, but I know when we've mowed that, it can bring other pests like snakes, even kittens. So, just things that you don't want to have. Well, maybe the kittens, but next slide, please. Fire safety. Things just to remember. Don't leave any candles unattended. If you're going to be at home, you can light a candle, but let's just remember, if you're going to be leaving or going to bed, let's turn those off, especially with the holidays coming. Do not remove your fire stops from your stoves. Those are very important. When we do our preventative maintenance, and even when you move into your home, we're checking the date on those. So if at any time it feels like it's a little hard to pull off, you can pull them off at any time, look at the date on there, but just make sure you put them back on. If there's ever, God forbid, a fire on your stove or anything, those will prevent that fire from spreading. If your smoke alarm starts chirping, it always seems to happen, as soon as, someone moves in or something happens, something chirps. If at any time that happens, that means your battery's low. Just call it in as a work order, and we'll have somebody out there. For any true emergencies, such as any fires, please call us and let us know, but let us be your second call. Call 911 first. Make sure that the fire department goes out. Fire pits, I know a lot of people ask for fire pits. Just remember, they must be 30 feet away from your home, and no bonfires. We've had some interesting things happen in the past. Next slide. Reg Cafe and contact information. This information, once again, will be updated again. As I mentioned, we do have a couple of vacancies that are going to be occurring or have occurred with our customer experience managers or assistant community experience managers. So that information will always stay constant, but it will change on there. I can't urge you enough. If you have an issue, please reach out to the individuals here in the back. Like I said, sometimes we know that we can't always resolve your issues on the first try. We definitely do try, but there are going to be instances, and so you just want to make sure that you just stay in constant communication with us. It's very important. If at any time something hasn't been resolved and you need to speak with me directly, I am always happy to take a phone call. I know that a lot of families have reached out to me if something has fallen through the cracks in between. I'm always available. But it starts with our team here, and I just ask that you give the team here an opportunity for any questions and concerns you may have. Next slide. As Colonel Brady mentioned, we do have our walking town halls. Those are the set dates already for the next 3 that we'd be having. So on October 18th, we will be walking the Chamizal Vista neighborhood. November 15th will be Corregidor, and December 12th will be Logan Heights. I always ask families, go out there and have fun. Go out there and talk to us. There's a lot of representatives out there. Our team is out there, as you kind of see them being represented here. We tend to have a lot of different things to, have the families come out and kind of enjoy, where we dress up people in costumes, or we do give out afternoon snacks. But most importantly, what we're there for is to meet you and give you an opportunity to talk to us. So take advantage of those walking town halls. I know that I truly enjoy them. The weather's a little bit cooler. Colonel Brady personally likes to knock on some doors, not just but he likes to get to know a lot of individuals. So it's good to go out there. Issue resolution. I'm sorry, the next slide, please. What if an issue is not being resolved? Once again, as I had spoke, on here are a few telephone numbers that are quite important. Starting with our 4 community experience managers. From Arnold Loya to Kylie Paz to Ale Rodriguez. To Ms. Kathy Bustillos. So there's different individuals out there who can help out. Each one of them has a different position for a different neighborhood, but there's just going to be a lot of things that each person can answer in. So please go down that line if you do ever need any type of assistance. Our quality control specialist, unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, but he's absolutely phenomenal. For any of you who've met him, that's Mr. Danny Lee. He goes out there and he quality controls any work orders, such as anything that's been a life, health, or safety issue. So once again, just give us a call. And if at the end, if you feel that none of us can support you, there is a telephone number there for BBC Cares, and that goes directly to our corporate office. Next slide. Promise. You can hear another voice soon. Congratulations to our scholarship winners. I always love to hear all the good news and all the good accolades that happen within our community. I can honestly say that Fort Bliss, definitely, being one of the largest installations, tends to get a lot of our great winners. And this past year, we had 9 winners. So you just want to look for any type of information, once again, through social media feeds, emails that come from our corporate office, stuff that's put in by a special events manager, just kind of letting you know to apply for the scholarships program. But if you are looking, that'll happen again next year. The applications will go out and it'll be from scholarships@bbcgrp.com. And then right after that, on your next slides, you're going to see some of the happy pictures of individuals who have won this past year. And it's a great ceremony that we have. We invite Garrison Command and of course RCI, and we take some pictures, have a couple of snacks, and just congratulate the future individuals who've won. Just to put it out there, it's not just for kids. This year is also open for spouses. It's also open for our service members, so anybody can apply. So it's a great thing to take advantage of, because who doesn't want some free money when it comes to an education? And then I believe there's one more slide with a couple more pictures, and that is it for me.
Thank you, Letty. So that saves the digital Garrison app if you go to the next slide. So this is the Installation Management Command standard for getting information out. It's teamed with AFES. And so as service members come to the installation, we request that they download the app and use it. So the Garrison will keep contact information updated, and it will link you to other information. So for instance, I described up front, the public portal at army.mil is linked through the digital Garrison app. So if you were to search for Director of Public Works Housing, you can get to the public portal page and find that contact information, and that's where these slides will be and the recording of this event will be. And so now we're going to move into the question and answer period. What we have set up, again, this is being recorded, so there's mics on either side that you can go to. If you desire not to go to a mic, then we'll restate the question so that those who are watching later can hear about it. During that, you can remain anonymous, and so you don't have to state your name, but we do ask that you state location in terms of housing area, how long you've been there, keep the issue to your own issue, firsthand information, and there'll be no reprisal for that. And so this is one of a few mechanisms that we get feedback, right? So these are supposed to be quarterly. I described kind of the concept. We also do walking town halls. We've received the tenant satisfaction survey, which is an annual requirement that we go through. Only 23% of the residents took it. And so that's some feedback. We also, as Letty described, we have the Satisfact scores, another portion of feedback. So we have many tools, and the last one is the ICE comment, interactive customer experience. And so several tools to get an overall picture. What we found over several years is there's some dissatisfaction with some landscaping, which we're addressing in our out-year development plan. There's some dissatisfaction with recreational opportunities. Some of that is due to older, dilapidated playgrounds that Balfour Beatty did not intend to maintain. And so they're going to use money to disassemble and demolish those so they don't seem like they're supposed to be used. And the last one is to continue with maintenance, responsiveness, and communication. Balfour Beatty in June of 2021 switched to a regional call center, and from that we kind of went into what are some of the issues with tracking information. And then the maintenance responsiveness kind of goes to what Lady said with how are you giving information, or do you have the correct contact information? And so we continue to work with those initiatives. This year, coming out of the tenant satisfaction survey, we'll do a plan of action that the senior commander, Major General Eisenhower, will sign, and we'll go all the way up to Lieutenant General Jones for final approval and logging. And so we'll continue to work through that. They'll want to see that we're using our resources to get after some of the resident issues. But again, this is an opportunity. So the floor is open, and we'll take the first question.
I'm glad you mentioned the water issue. So I put in a work order about 3 months ago because my automatic sprinklers, one of them just came up and it popped off, so it looked like Old Faithful in my backyard. And they sent somebody out and he looked at it and says, oh, they sent it to the wrong section. Somebody else has to fix it. Took a picture, he left. Then they canceled it, so I put it in again. And it's like 3 months ago, it's still not fixed. So right around that sprinkler, it floods. The rest of the grass is dying because it's not spraying the water out there. And I paid for the grass seed because there's never any at the housing office. So on the same, I know you said stay with personal issues. This is in a public area. Right when you come into Aero Vista is the housing area, Aero Vista. right when you come in, like the first corner on the left-hand side, I don't know if it used to be a sprinkler that happened just like mine or not. Something was there. There's a little pipe in the ground. The water every morning bubbles out. When the sprinkler systems are on, it just floods the whole corner right there. I mean, that's every day. So that's a lot of wasted water. We're in the desert, so putting in a work order doesn't work because they're not coming out to fix that. I don't know if they don't have people that work on sprinkler systems, irrigation. Also in my front yard, there's a work order in that. There's little water tubing that they put in when there's a tree. Well, a tree was apparently there before, but it's been removed. But all the tubing is still there. There's a nest of tubing there in the middle of just gravel. But when the sprinklers come on, it sprays everywhere. It's not watering anything. It's just gravel there. Why can't we get that fixed? You know, that's wasting a lot of water, and that's just my house. From my house, I'm sorry, sir, I'm going to talk about it across the way. My sprinkler that popped off is not the only one. You can stand in my yard and see 2 other houses that I know of that you can see the water spraying straight up out of the ground like that. So Aero Vista, wasting a lot of water. I would also, you can cut me off if I'm going too far. I'm probably going to talk longer than you, ma'am.
If I could have some, so are we getting this recorded? Is it coming through? Okay. Again, this is an issue with Aero Vista housing, water sprinklers. You put in a work order. Can I ask what else have you done to alert Balfour Beatty other than the work order? How did you do it? Call in or through Rent Cafe?
So that's another thing I wanted to bring up. What do you call that thing? The automated call service. When you say that's not in this country, or it's not within this region, it's in the country, that's a stretch. Some of those are in other countries. Like I called one, and I'm pretty sure it was an Indian guy. Could barely understand him. He got roosters in his backyard crowing. I have hearing loss in 1 ear, so that was a very difficult conversation. I can't understand as it is, plus he's got roosters crowing, and into the story, nobody ever came and responded to that call anyway. One time I put in a work order for my refrigerator, and I'm just bringing that up because I read in here they're supposed to be there in 30 minutes. That didn't happen. I had to throw away everything that was in the freezer. So I called that morning, and they never came till that evening, and they weren't going to come, but I called and said, hey, where's this guy at? When's he coming? Because it was already past the time. It was already past 5 o'clock. A very nice gentleman came. The guy that showed up, he was on point. He actually had to salvage a part from in his truck to get it working. But still, I mean, that's a lot of wasted food if the standard is you'll be there in 30 minutes. Because everything was in the freezer was trash. So I called the number. A lot of times it goes out of the area, it goes to a different country. I don't know why we're doing that. I mean, I think it's ridiculous if they're not in the Fort Bliss area, but maybe you don't have that level of their quantity of calls to respond to. I don't know. So I called last week on Wednesday. I called again about my sprinkler system. I called that number, and it went, like I said, that's when I got the guy I didn't understand with the roosters and everything. And then I left a message on the portal where you go into, and that digital Garrison that you mentioned, sir, that's awesome. If you guys don't use it, definitely get on there. And I called and I left a message. So I left a message on the digital Garrison thing. I left a new work order for it, and that was last week. I'm still waiting on a call. I requested a phone call back both times. Speaking of phone calls, sorry. Whenever you do put in a work order, you put in there that you would like them to call you when they come. They're not doing that. I mean, I know that's probably nobody's fault in this room, but you need to be aware of that. But we did shark training last week, and they said that they've had sexual harassment charges placed on employees from Pride. So those are the people coming to my house, and I'm telling them, when you come, call me so I can be there. And they're not doing it. They're just showing up. So they came once to fix my oven. 6 times. I've been there for a year. 6 times I've had work orders. Not a single time have they ever called me before they show up at the house. One time they went in to fix my oven, and I didn't even know they were there. I came in, there was a note on the table. My daughter says, hey, what's that note? They left me a note. Oh, we were here, we fixed it. Yeah, that's true. They were there, they fixed it. Why didn't I get a phone call? They just show up and go in and do what they got to do, and the work order said, call me, this is my number. There's no phone call. So, I don't know, I'm complaining a lot here.
Well, give us an opportunity to answer these issues you raised up.
Yes, sir.
What we can do is we can circle back, because I want to give other people the opportunity. So with this, we have work order responsiveness, communications, in general. I'll let Letty respond to that, and with a focus in on, as you said before, some systems are not perfect, right? And so you have to elevate and escalate the process if you're not getting the response that is in the Tenant Bill of Rights. Please address that, and I'll hand it off to Yolanda to describe from DPW housing lens how they could help, because they're another advocate for the resident if you're having trouble with getting through to the right person. So let's go ahead with you, Lynn.
Sir, first of all, let me say I do apologize that that did not get rectified. You should have received a phone call. One of the questions that I had, I know that you placed all your work orders in through either your phone or directly to the call center, but have you ever reached out to your community center to speak to any of the managers there or to any representative there, sir?
I've done that a couple of times. I got lucky and if something happens during duty hours and they happen to be there. Yes, that works better, but that's not always the case. It's not always possible to do that.
Okay, no, and I understand. So one of the things, like I had mentioned, is that I had implemented a lot of the meet and greets, which allows you to not only just meet me or our facilities director, but a lot of individuals in the back room, because you have a specific maintenance manager, assistant manager, and then neighborhood manager for those areas. And so I want you to be able to use those resources as well, because even though sometimes it's not feasible for you to get a call, you should be able to get a text message, like meaning you can't always receive a phone call, depending on where you're working, but you can get a text message or an email. And if you just let us know that there is a delay in a service or something that's just been kind of lost in translation, the team or myself will be happy to jump in and help you. So once again, I'm so sorry. Before you leave today, I do want you to go to the back so our team can get your information so we can resolve the issues, especially with your landscaping. As far as your refrigerator, when it comes to any type of emergency work orders, yes, they should have responded. And if not, then I need to find out why that response time was so high. Like, why did it take them so long? So I owe you an answer when it comes to that. So let me look into that information. And once again, that's why we have our management team on the ground, why they're there at the community centers, because they would have been able to address or be able to assist you with any of that food loss. Or at least provide you the right guidelines on what to do in order to get any type of restitution. So once again, I ask you, please use the team here on the ground, because our time is just not from 8 to 5. We're here to help our families. So once again, just please use this as a lifeline when it comes to that. I'm not saying that you cannot utilize the call center. I want you to utilize the call center, but I need to see where that discrepancy is.
One last follow-up is the issue he raised about access and how you can control access of maintenance workers. So if you run into an issue where you did not authorize access, how do you follow up? How do you rectify that?
Sure. So one of the things, sir, is did you give them permission to enter, or did you write it on your contract at any time when you were doing the lease process?
So when I call and put in the work order, they ask me, do you give them permission to enter, or how should they contact? And I tell them, I give them my phone number, they read it back to me. And I even, after the third time, whenever I do that, I tell them, I say, hey, look, last time they didn't call. Can you make sure they call? And they still don't. They never have. Never.
And that's why they tend to give you that window between 8 and 12. I'd love to be able to perfect it where, yes, you get a call right before. It's one of the things that I'm working towards. But I don't want to give you any false promises by saying you'll always get a phone call right prior. So if there is a major emergency or anything that happens, that's why I say if you can kind of let us know, our team here on the ground can also help coordinate some of that information, so that way we can try to help out by setting up an appointment or give you a much shorter window instead of having to wait for that long period of time, sir.
Okay, over to Ms. Yolanda Brown for how DPW could respond to assist residents in this situation.
Yes, just first for a point of clarification. So you mentioned Pride. Pride is actually a DPW contractor who will do maintenance on normal facilities, not BBC housing. So I do want to separate the two. They are not the same maintenance personnel that are going to your home. The second piece of that is, yes, if you have an issue with a work order, you're not getting a proper response as you did the very first work order for the sprinkler, immediately you have our contact information for the Army Housing Office. We are your advocate, and we're the liaison to work with you to ensure that BBC is responding in a timely manner. We can also look into the work orders to see where the issues may be, and work with Letty and the leadership at BBC to see how we can better improve.
Okay, we're just based on time, we're going to open up to other questions, and if we have time at the end, we can move on. I would like to kind of jump on your comment that, you know, DPW housing is your advocate. They'll oversee, you know, even with survey questions, they'll do independent calls just to follow up and make sure that they're getting a good sense of where Balfour Beatty is with their ability to execute their company obligations. Okay, we have another question.
Hi there, Staff Sergeant John Dudek. I've lived here at Fort Bliss for about 5 years. I've been in Logan Heights since December. I have a lot prepared, but given the time, I'll try to sum this up. Most of you, many of you, are already familiar with me and the issues that I've been having with Balfour Beatty since March. However, despite the fact that I've had to force that into seeking legal assistance, taking it up to the formal dispute process, being just completely abused and pushed aside by Fort Bliss Homes and promises that they have made to myself and my family. I'd like to just bring up a few examples of times where they've not only done that to me, but they've done that to you, sir, and to you as well, Sergeant Major. So after being given a certain standard to follow by Sergeant Major Gonzalez in remediating my home and how it was supposed to look and how it was supposed to be conducted, Fort Bliss Homes failed to replace the tile in my dining room to the standard that was instructed to them by Sergeant Major Gonzalez. He was physically at my house. I witnessed him say this to them, and they failed to do it. And that they failed to even meet the standard that they briefed me before they began the remediation. And that was, I sent them a message when I realized that it was wrong the day before they tried to move me back into my house. And then it took 2 more meetings and my wife sobbing to get it corrected. During negotiations with Fort Bliss Homes regarding my informal dispute with them, Jessica Holston of Fort Bliss Homes agreed with Colonel Brady and with the facts that my family was displaced for more than 30 days and therefore entitled to be moved at the expense of Fort Bliss Homes to adequate housing, regardless of the settlement agreement's results. Despite this, moving expenses continued to be a condition of the settlement agreement, and when I refused to accept their meager and insulting offer, Fort Bliss Homes rescinded their offer to move my family entirely. Correction, they refused to move my family at their expense entirely. They still informed me that I could have a house in Paso del Norte, but it wasn't until 5 days later they decided to tell me they weren't paying for it.
Staff Sergeant Dudek, but just on time, you brought up 2 issues, so I want to kind of do a pause and address those 2. So the first one, and I'll give it to Lady Stevens to answer, and you can pass it off as necessary, is dealing with when you're coming in after remediation and Balfour Beatty's ability to match the requests or requirements of the government. You are an independent company, so if you can address how you work through that, you have to make your own decisions. And then with the informal dispute, just for everyone's sake, it is still under mediation, so I don't want to open that up for any comments because it's at the IMCOM level. But to bring out that, and we can go to DPW housing, is to talk through how that process happens, because again, it advocates for you and allows for an arbitration between you as a tenant and the landlord, with the government overseeing it for fairness. So Letty, over to you.
When any time that we're going to be doing anything like such as any environmental repair, we actually take ourselves out of the equation and we have a third-party vendor come in. With that third-party vendor, it's going to be a licensed environmental team. They will let us know the specifications of what work needs to be completed and what needs to be done. Once they are completing that work, they give us the work plan. That work plan then is followed to the T from our maintenance department. So from there, it completely takes us out of the equation. We also do have an environmental specialist on staff in order to better give us information, what to follow and what for us to do. I know that there was definitely some differences between what we thought, what made you happy, and once again, all I can do is apologize, sir, but that is our process.
So with going into detail with the tile, before I hand it over to Yolanda, if there was a request for the same tile across the board, and that's not what occurred, what recourse do you have, or what decisions can you make if the contractor you hired did not achieve the standard that was set?
It can be done exactly what Sergeant Dudek did. He had a conversation with us. We had a meeting at his home. We walked through the process and we understood what he meant. It was definitely a bad miscommunication error, but we completed the work that needed to be done. And that's where I ask everybody, if you stay in communication with us and voice your concerns, we will definitely address those. It might not always meet everybody's expectations or standards, but we definitely do our best to make sure that we try to satisfy you. At those times, there's going to be times when we have to agree to disagree, but we would never leave anything that's unsafe, and that's, once again, why we follow our protocols to the T and why we have somebody on staff to assist with those issues.
Okay, so with that is a quality control mechanism that Balfour Beatty does have. Again, they're short with that staffing, but they have that capability, and then every community manager and maintenance manager is also overwatching that. Now over to DPW Housing. For the informal dispute process, can you explain how you continue to advocate for the soldier and make sure that the process is on track?
Yes, sir. So normally we do try to resolve the issues at the lowest level between the tenant and the Army Housing Office as the advocate to work with BBC to get those issues resolved. If we can't get those issues resolved and we have continued to talk, then we will go, the tenant will request an informal dispute. There is a form that has to be filled out. There are very specific requirements to the informal dispute process. Once we have gone to the informal dispute and had our meeting with the Garrison Commander, and each line item is discussed, we will either come to a conclusion and resolve the issues, or we will not. And again, the tenant can request a formal dispute, as you did, Staff Sergeant Dudek. And upon the formal dispute process, there are very specific requirements, and you have to, again, as the tenant, fill out the form, be very specific about the things that you have concerns with or issues with. And each one of those items individually are reviewed, as well as reviewed by the SJA, which is the JAG, the legal department, as well as those things are sent up to IMCOM, which is the Installation Management Command, and they will either accept the formal dispute or state that it does not fall in the requirements of a formal dispute.
Okay, we're at the 1 hour mark. Just by a show of hands, are there any other questions before I give I have one more. So if you don't mind, we're going to go receive that question, and then we'll open it back up.
So my question is also communication based. So I've been in communications with Libby and some of the people back here. I attended the meet and greet meeting. The problem is we don't receive feedback. So I have yet to receive feedback. Oh, sure. We've been asking about our community projects, specifically in Lower Beaumont. I'm going on year 3. In the 3 years that I've lived there, the community projects have been sort of started, and then they keep getting pushed back, which I understand the delays with COVID and everything. But then they told us this summer, and then we were told at the meeting, it'll begin in September, and here we are at the end of September, and it still hasn't happened. There's giant potholes that you mentioned about the storm problems in the communities that were fixed with the landscaping, but the potholes have not been fixed. So they sent somebody out to do an assessment. There was a few, I want to say 2 or 3 different companies, because we saw them taking pictures, and still nothing's come of it. So the buses are still using that road to pick up the kids to take to school, and they're going to get a concussion from this giant pothole that's in that road, because you see the bus bounce, you see the kids bounce. So my biggest thing is we communicate, we call, we email, we attend the meetings, and we're not receiving any feedback.
Thank you, ma'am. So, to summarize that question is communication to the community at large with major community projects. So I'll hand it over to Balfour Beatty. Phil, if you want to, I don't know if you want to take that.
I was not aware of this at this time. That's something I can go out there and look. I'm sure Letty, what? What's the playground? Okay, I guess we'll have to get back to you on this. I was not aware.
Potholes has been, it's been at least almost a year. The playground's been years. It's been since 2019, I want to say, when they first mentioned it. The playground and the basketball area.
Okay. I'll talk with Letty and we'll get back to you, ma'am. Can we get your, I'm sure Letty has your information that we can. So we'll be in contact with you and we'll discuss what needs to happen and get a plan intact.
No, most definitely. Well, come with us right afterward. I think Arnold should probably already have an update for you when it comes to that, or either that or our facilities director. As far as the playgrounds, we already know that we do need to go ahead and get you more information. So that's one of the things that Phil and I are talking offline in order to send out that detailed communication, because it keeps getting pushed back. He's getting information, he's articulating it to us. We just need to get finite information and exactly when those repairs will start.
So like I think the biggest issue right now, I get the playground's gonna come eventually, but the pothole is.
The number one
big
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. We got you. I'll come and see me right after.
Okay, so we're at the hour point for the video. And so for those that attended, thanks for your time. And again, we have lots of support personnel and staff in the back of the room. So at this point, we're going to close the video. And for anyone that has additional questions, please raise those and we'll be here for you. Thank you.